Good evening and welcome to the Monday, April 27th meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission. We'll start with a roll call. Chair Lisa Hanson, present. Vice Chair Jacob Miller.
Present.
Alder Jim Hutchinson.
Present.
Commissioner Darius Daniels.
Present.
Commissioner Ken Ravinsky.
Present.
Commissioner Emma Fullwilder. Present. And Commissioner Kelsey Lutzo.
Present.
Excellent. All right. Moving on to approval of the agenda. Approval of the agenda for the Monday, April 27th, 2026 meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ravinsky, second by Commissioner Daniels. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Moving on to approval of minutes. Approval of the minutes from the April 13th, 2026 meeting. Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Fullwilder, second by Commissioner Ravinsky. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And then moving on to regular business, and item number 1 is a public hearing. This public hearing has been published, properly posted, and public notification has been published in the Green Bay Press Times. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items, and we invite your comments and ask that you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, whether you favor, oppose, or only providing information in this matter, and your comments or concerns. We also ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. City staff will provide a presentation during the public hearings, and questions raised by the public may be asked, but they will not be answered by staff until the upcoming actionable item. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and your comments must be addressed to the chair. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and we'll now open the public hearing on item number 1. Public hearing to amend Grandview Planned Unit Development located on parcels number 21-16-1-5, number 21-10, number 21-11, number 21-12, number 21-13-1, number 21-17, number 12-11-1, number 21-16-1-16, number 21-21-A, number 21-21, number 21-4, submitted by Verbiker on behalf of Humboldt Investments LLC, Wood Run LLC, Erie Road Development LLC, Duquesne Development Inc., and the City of Green Bay property owners.
Sure. So what you're looking at here is that property, to give some context to where we're at. The new carnivore development is located over here. This Finger Road, East Mason, and Northview is the edge of the city limits. We're here because we received some requests for development by 2 new property owners in this area. Woodburn LLC, which is located north of the existing facility over on Erie, and Duquesne Development over in the southeast corner of the overall Grandview PUD. This PUD was created back in 2014 as a traditional neighborhood development design. In general, what that mean is trying to allow for a mixture of commercial and public spaces with lots that are typically more condensed, allowing for some missing middle, things of that sort, congregated into one larger area. This PUD received an amendment back in 2018, and here we are today with some additional changes that are being requested, as well as some updates that reflect changes that happened to the zoning code over the past 8 years. For future land use, what you're seeing here in a way is kind of what's reflected in the PUD itself. A mixture here of different uses that are consistent with mixed residential for the area, as well as some commercial and public institutional. The zoning, as mentioned, is PUD for the overall area. I'll go back to what we're trying to amend here today. So I'm going to tackle this through 3 different lenses. One will be looking at the southeast corner and the changes being made back over here in the green area. The second being Wood Run LLC in the northwest corner. And then finally, some cleanup actions are made to the overall PUD text language. To reflect what's happened in the past 8 years. So down in the southeast corner, near that Kane has property over now. The uses themselves are not changing. It's more of a matter of changing around some of the development patterns in this area. The first you notice, this is the 2018 land use. This is the proposed 2026 update. We're still talking about having a transition of use of intensity and uses to where multifamily would be down over here in the southern end, transitioning over to townhome, and then back up into a more low density residential neighborhood with a mixture of singles and twos, as well as some townhomes that would be transitioning back over into a commercial area along Grandview itself. Additionally, as what comes with refined with truly looking to engineer a site, some changes are being proposed as to where the stormwater pond would go on the site, knowing, yeah, we want to actually move forward and put forth some plans for development. With that then too, this roadway here, Copper Falls, would there'd be some changes to where you have a four-way intersection rather than having a staggered T intersection to connect back over to the rest of the overall TND and PUD itself. This is an example of what's being proposed as a site plan for this area. So I'm talking a fairly contemporary campus style multifamily development. And then along what is right now so called as row F, so we're some rear loaded townhomes.
Could you speak up a little louder? We can't hear you.
No problem. So the south, what is being proposed is campus style multifamily apartments. That is what was proposed in the initial PUD. Just to the north, that would be townhomes. This would expand a bit further off towards Grandview itself than what was initially proposed. Bringing forth some of the changes here today. The townhomes themselves would be rear loaded, which would meet the code in general for townhome design in the city. That would then extend back up here to the northern portion of the Duquesne development. And then looking to put in, note down here, some two-family homes at the corner lots of this area. Otherwise, the uses primarily remain the same, but it's changing up a bit of the row pattern for the southeast corner of the property. Additionally, another developer is working with Becker to have some modifications to the northwest corner, just north of the senior living facility. This is Wood Run, and on Rocky Arbor, what they're proposing from before would be single families on some larger size lots, townhomes. And when development is being proposed out this way, there's a large overhead power line that comes into play as far as where we would be placing things. They've changed theirs up to where it would be rear loaded townhomes. That would allow for a bit more narrower lots on the north side where there'll be curb cuts pretty frequently to allow for narrower lots for single family homes. And the addition of a carriage court over in this area rather than having some deep lots, some smaller size lots over here. With that, trading out some townhomes for some single families. So same uses, a bit more density proposed with this. Suggests a bit better layout for the idea of rear-loaded private alleyways for entries rather than having multiple townhomes with multiple curb cuts along the south side of Rocky Arbor itself. There's a site plan exhibit noting the private drive. That would be just to the north of the multifamily. This idea has not changed in concept. This is the carriage court that was noted, trying to take advantage of the depth of these lots. And the way Rocky Arbor has been designed to try to reflect the environmental challenges of the site. So those are the two actual physical sites are looking to be slightly modified. Those slight modifications with the PUD itself is recall, the PUD language was written, in 2018. The zoning code at that time was chapter 13. So all the references in the PUD go to chapter 13. This update now references to chapter 44, which is a new part of the code. But I knew it was reorganized around 2020. That Z zoning was the last chapter in the municipal code, so that's a cleanup action. Additionally, there's some cleanup action here with things like setbacks. With our affordable housing code changes, setbacks in general became narrower as a minimum option, so that's reflected here in our setback table. Additionally, there were some notes about that setback table that were referencing to rear yard setbacks, side yard setbacks that wouldn't be applicable now that the zoning code has changed to have narrower minimum setbacks.
Can I ask a question on the setbacks, John?
This is the public hearing at this point, is that a?
It's all right.
Oh,
It's,
yeah, this is the public hearing, so he's just presenting at this time, so this is no question and answer with this part.
okay, I'll ask it later then. I've waited before and you told me that was an appropriate time too, so I guess I'll wait.
This is all Grant was talking here.
No, I understand, but no, I mean, the public hearing is, you're presenting right now. No,
I just have a specific question, the setbacks. I felt it was appropriate to ask while he's talking about it, or the lot widths and the square
Right.
footage.
but this is the public hearing, not the actionable item.
Again, Lisa, I apologize, but I've waited before and then you told me I spoke at the inappropriate time, so I'm asking at the time, so I will wait.
Okay, I'll move on. Now I'll wrap it up here. So there are a number of exhibits that reference back to some text and to some mapping of the property. With this change, Exhibit A, which was giving more of just an overview of the overall TMD that have references, say, to demographics back in 2014 and why we're doing this, that was removed because it was in that there was some language that reference to specific architectural styles. With this, still wanted to have a wide swath of variety for folks to choose. A change to the text to note that residential architectural styles shall include, but are not limited to, craftsman, bungalow, classic, traditional, cottage, country, farmhouse, southern, and ranch. All single-family detached homes shall have a covered front porch. The following styles are to not conform: Mediterranean, log, southwestern. So that was part of the original 2014 code that was there. Essentially, this is saying for all intents and purposes, unless you're doing a Mediterranean, a log, or a southwestern home, we consider that as being a type of architectural style that could be warranted inside this area. Finally, last changes to the PUD code itself. Under conditional uses, there was a strike through for single family attached dwellings, i.e. duplexes. That's not a permitted use in the low density R1 code, so we took that out as a conditional use because in typical R1 code, you are permitted to create two family homes. Other than that, like I said, this is referencing back to the different chapter 44 and also chapter 36, which is the updated subdivision of land code that used to be a different chapter number. So those are the changes.
All right, well, thank you very much. All right, with this public hearing, we're looking to hear from anyone who'd like to speak on this item. Just come forward to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
When do we get to?
And you're limited to 3 minutes. This is the public hearing, so we are just hearing from people who have input, so. The next item is the actual item, and at that time. We will have discussion at that time.
My name is Alan Pichard. I live at 153 South Grandview, which is just on the north end of this border. I think he has answered some of the questions that I was wondering about, but my biggest question was, what are going to be the changes and why are we making the changes? I think we made too many changes on the original plan already. So that's really all I have to say at this time.
Thank you.
My name is Jackie Gretza. I live at 3667 Grand Finger Road. And I just have a comment. We bought our property in 2013. We came to the city. How is this property all around us? There were 268 acres. How is this zoned? Because it was all mostly farmland. We were told it is zoned as single-family residential. That's what we were told at that time. And that's what we went with to purchase our property. We built our home. We were there 10 months and there was a meeting to change the zoning. We were there shortly, maybe another year, and this is at least the fourth zoning change in the area where we live. My question is, what is the purpose of zoning? Is if you can change it on a whim. How would any of you feel if you made a major purchase, a home, your property, this is where you live, and it's changed to factories, mainly. The people who live across the street from the new Drop Forge factory that is opening, they were told when Mason Street went through that all industrial would be on the south side of Mason Street and the north side would be all single-family residential. It is factories. It is, God knows what else is going to be put there. You know, are we going to be surrounded by factories and low-income housing or whatever? So that is my statement. Thank you.
Did anybody addressing the podium?
My name is Jim Gretzer. I live at the same address Jackie does, 3667 Figure Road. And yeah, I concur with everything she said. The point I want to bring out here is, as somebody who's being affected by this, your communication, meaning the city, because I don't know what each individual does, is really, really poor. Okay, it was posted in the paper correctly. That assumes people get the paper. So when we got the notice in the mail, right, on the 22nd of April, it is the 27th, the 22nd of April. And when I questioned, what? Well, we get those out 10 days before this meeting. No, the postmark on the envelope is the 21st. The letter's dated the 13th. Okay, there are pictures being shared here that I don't have access to. The picture I do have access to has no ledger to explain what it is. So how do I get prepared for a meeting like this when the information is not available and the time is not enough? So my wife's concern is my concern. Who knows what's going to change next? What are you going to put a nuclear power plant in our backyard? My experience with this committee is it's a rubber stamp. So why have the meetings? Just go ahead, it's good, that's fine. There was a lot of discussion when this PUD was put together about setbacks. And now, we made a change. So setbacks that we talked about before, those aren't important. Doesn't anybody realize that there are people that are affected by these decisions and you just don't give a blank? I'll leave it at that. So please, when you're making these decisions, think about the people. Stop thinking about the money. When this development first went in, they showed all this tax revenue that was going to be generated. Okay? Huge amounts of tax revenue, right? How many houses have been built in the development now? None. You're given a false sense of information. Think about the people. Think about the people. A lot of people don't come to these meetings. They're afraid to talk in front of a group. That's the number one fear people have, not flying, talking in front of a group. So please consider that there's somebody living there that has an issue. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Let the record reflect that no one else came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 2. Consideration with possible action to amend the Grand View Plan Unit Development located on parcels number 21-16-1-5, number 21-10, number 21-11, number 21-12, number 21-13-1, number 21-17, number 21-11-1, number 21-16-1-16, number 21-21-A, number 21-20, number 21-4, submitted by Verbiker on behalf of Humboldt Investments LLC, Wood Run LLC, Erie Road Development LLC, to Crane Development Inc., and the City of Green Bay property owners.
Sure. So to address some of the questions that were reported there, when it comes to planning developments, they can be pretty complex documents. The city staff has discretion to review these to go, do we feel that the changes being proposed here warrant having a PUD amendment, or are they minor changes that really don't affect the overall PUD? When we looked at this, we were having that debate because the uses are the same as they were before. There's no change in uses. The placement is for the most part the same. In this diagram, we're gonna see that the commercial got changed up, the pond got changed. We have a road pattern that's slightly different. Back over to the north, same thing. It's essentially the same uses, but there were some changes to adding some more single families to the north, less townhomes to the south. Adding in a carriage court, which would be a private drive on the north side. That, and in conjunction with the changes to the code, i.e. updating the change to chapter 44 and updating the setbacks to reflect what was done here in the 2025 updates, we felt it was appropriate to come forward to this body and put some sunshine on this to note to the public, yes, there are changes happening, but overall, it was a pretty minor amendment. As far as the uses when talking about things like industrial, that's not part of this PUD. This PUD is a traditional neighborhood design, so we're talking a variety of residential uses in commercial and public spaces. That's this is going after, not industrial uses. The industrial is back over here with carnivore, so the separate planning development. I don't know. Might want to. Alder Grant has a specific question as to the setback.
I mean, are you done presenting? You haven't given, I mean, generally you present and give us our recommendations.
Yeah.
And then we talk.
No problem. I will do that.
Sorry.
So as noted before, changes to the setbacks that were put forward. I'll go to the Alder Grant so you can see that. The setbacks changed from 25 to 5. That's how the code is written. The multifamily changed to a minimum lot width of 40, also the way it is written, but all that said, the multifamily that is being proposed in here is on much wider parcels than 40 feet. The change of the minimum maximum from to 10 to 20 to reflect the size of what a parked car would be in front of an attached garage. You're required to have at least 20 feet. That's where that comes into play. And then striking out some language that would go back to talking about minimum side yard setbacks. When we're talking about the old code, we reflect having 6 feet for a single story building and 8 feet for a 2-story building, or 1.5 and more. This is just taking it out because we're going to go back to the code with changes that would have the side yards go down to 5, 5, and 5. So with that, staff would recommend approval of the request, subject to the adoption of the changes to the PUD.
Yeah, if Alder Grant had questions.
Thank you. So just for clarification, there's no changes to this plan as far as the multifamily part goes to it. There's no increase or changes to that.
No, so Alder Grant, that's still I'm gonna show you the area down here. This area where it was, multifamily was proposed as a campus multifamily before. And, I'll call this a minor change, but I'll note it now. There's a drive entrance that is being proposed out of Grandview that wasn't there before. And the drive entrance coming here off of East Chippewa Circle. Before, the drive entrances were potentially gonna be more mid-block. And now they're lining up with either a shared driveway entrance or the terminus of a street.
Okay, yep, so it changes are to the road, not to any of the amount of dwellings that there's going to be, is that correct?
Yes, I don't believe in the prior plan, there was in a specific amount. It was, you couldn't go above a certain amount, and they are not exceeding that with this campus south development proposal now.
Okay, that's what I just want to make sure is clear for the residents there. There was timing of the letters or the notification brought up. Do we know why letters were sent out after the date that was in the letter?
I do not know why that was the case. I know we reached out to one of the other, to some folks near to see if we happened to have this an issue, because we were expecting to hear back from folks, but I do not know why it went out at that time. Normally, it's our process to put these letters out essentially approximately 2 weeks before the meeting itself.
Okay, does staff think and the plan commission think that knowing that these letters were only received on the 22nd, that this is proper notice to move forward, or should this be held so that the residents can properly be informed of this?
So the letters themselves, it's not an ordinance, the policy of the plan commission to put this forth. I'll note this was listed in 3 different places. One, this was posted as a public hearing in the Press Times that was published on April 10th and April 17th. I recognize most people do not read those. Secondly, this was on the website starting that early that week, 2 weeks ago. This was posted that there'd be a public hearing and action on this item on our planning websites. And 3, there were signs, the orange signs were posted out on the property. I did not know where it was posted out in that large property, but there was an orange notice of zoning action sign out at this area.
Okay, and then my question about lot widths, on that slide where you have the breakdown, I did notice 50-foot widths and 5,000 square feet. The chart, sorry.
Yep.
We had some red lined on it, yep.
There you go.
Yes. The single family detached, 5,000 square feet and 50-foot width lots.
Yeah.
Is that, because that is not having to do with the amendments that we just did, that should be 60 and 6,000. So is this trying to do a CUP for this
No,
exception?
yeah, I get what you're saying here with this. So if you recall, in the old code, the minimum lot size was 7,575 per minimum lot width. This being a traditional neighborhood design development, the code that was approved back in 14 and revised back in 18 still kept the minimum lot size being 5,050. That didn't change. Within T and Ds, which is this is the only T and D approved in the city. That's the standard minimum lot size for traditional neighborhood development design. And so that was what was applied to this in 14, 18, and now.
Okay. So this technically was already approved. It's not part of this PUD, is that correct?
Correct. That's been in place here for the past 12 years.
Okay, all right. I just wanted clarification on that for the residents and myself. Thank you.
No problem.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I didn't,
The floor is closed at this time.
you said something I didn't understand.
You want to,
I don't know if we can question, make it anything.
well, I'm just saying. Right.
No.
Second.
One. You said that?
Yeah, I said that.
Motion and a second by Commissioner Rinsky to open the floor. All those in favor?
Nay.
All right. You can come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please.
Don, I did not understand. You said this is the only something in the city.
Traditional neighborhood development.
Okay,
So our traditional neighborhood design is, we have a special section of the code. Typically, we have zoning for residential, that's our R1, R2, R3. There's commercial zoning, there's industrial zoning, there's mixed use zoning. Traditional neighborhood design is its own independent categorization for zoning, and it applies to this particular area.
okay, so this is the only one that's considered a traditional
Neighborhood design.
neighborhood design. Do you know why this is the only one?
These are placed in newer or developments that would begin, say, redeveloped agricultural fields. It's trying to play into patterns of neighborhood design that were pre-World War II, is what this is. So many suburban developments that were created over time did not have those patterns: wider lot sizes, wider streets, very segregated uses. In this TND design, is trying to have a mixture of walkable areas for the public.
Okay,
Okay. I've been on Grandview 38 years.
Your name and address for the record again.
Alan Pishek, 153 South Grandview. I don't have the picture of the. This is the only one I have. I don't have the one of all the buildings. So my questions go to how many multi-unit are you thinking about putting out there? I know this was all discussed a while back. But when they talk about changes, I want to know what changes. Now, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but Green Bay is one of the few towns and cities around here that are building all of these apartments. And right now, we have tons of them on Mason Street across from Nature's Way. You have more on Huron, and they're going up all over. Anybody notice Alloways, De Pere, Ledgeview? They're not building any because they're getting all the decent size homes that are $400,000, $500,000 homes. Now, like I said, I don't know how many condos or multifamily units you're getting, but right now traffic is terrible on Grandview just because of the two factories that are out there. We got cars going down Grandview 60 miles an hour or more. We got a bridge that has to be replaced soon. The road is closed right now because of the bridge fell through with all the rain we have. Now, I was told that was going to be done in 3 years. Well, I think they better do something. They don't control, the police don't control the semis going down our road. So we don't need more traffic on Grandview other than homes. We don't need apartment buildings. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Motion to close the floor, yes. Second. Motion to close the floor and a second by Commissioner Vinsky. All those in favor?
Hi.
I'll address that. So showing here from before, the existing plan notes for multifamily occurring in the southeast corner. This is still multifamily down in this area. The proposal calls for a mix of different apartments in this area. Those apartments As far as the range goes. Comprised of 30 and 42 unit buildings staying within the mandated density of 10 to 20 units per acre. Minimum lot size, as far as how many units you can have per acre, this has been the code since 2014, is 1,500 square feet of acreage per unit, so, if you're gonna have an acre of property, the most you could have there is somewhere in the ballpark of about 28 units per acre. And so, however this final translation goes with, you don't have a specific delineated legal description for this area, but they'll have to stay under that limit. I think it's between 10 and 20 per acre essentially.
Can you, because I've heard a lot about apartments, these are townhomes, correct?
So,
And
This-
single family,
yeah, so what you're seeing here, this is I would call it the more typical suburban multifamily campus style developments.
but townhome versus apartments.
These would be typical multifamily that you would see down to the south.
We'll tell you what we're talking.
Yeah, they're back here on Road F, these are townhomes. Rear loaded townhomes. Over here on this north-south road, rear loaded townhomes, and then back. Over at the Rocky Harbor sites. These are not townhomes, they're very narrow, single family lots that kind of have the impression of being like a townhome, but they're narrow single families.
But they're not,
Narrow.
you know,
That's not the fit.
Uh,
Road condos can be there.
These are these homes here are to be detached from one another.
Gotcha.
The idea was to have something like those.
Gotcha.
But as far, this will go kind of back to what's happening over in Van Buren, where there are duplexes over that way that have an impression of being townhome-like because of the density and the design. And the rear-loaded nature of the driveway. That would be a similar impression down over in this area.
yeah, I think that's the complex of this, because I'm in one of those townhomes, absolutely love it. So when you said townhome versus apartment versus duplex,
Yeah,
I think that's different. Duplex did mean to denote something totally different than a townhome.
Show duplexes.
I know it is, and I think because it's only 2 units versus 3 units. My townhome is classified as a
duplex.
duplex, and it's absolutely not. 3 stories, 2,500 square feet, and I will put my townhome or duplex against any single family home because it's extraordinary. So I think we should do something versus, I know it's considered a duplex, but I live in a townhome, even though what the city might call it. And I think that's the difference between an apartment versus a townhome versus a duplex. Because we've heard in this commission a lot of things around duplexes, a lot of negative things around duplexes. If I stay in one and I'm in a duplex, but it's actually a townhome, I think we need to, oh, that's funny, make that clarification. The second thing is that was brought up, was low income housing. Is this considered low income housing?
So. There's nothing about this that has been proposed to be not market rate. It's market rate housing that's being proposed.
Thank you. The second thing, someone mentioned this committee is, this commission is rubber stamp. I think people need to understand that anything that comes out of this commission is a recommendation. It could still go to city council and be overturned at any time, whether we vote yay or nay. We could vote nay and city council could overturn it. So anything that comes out of this commission is a recommendation to the city. It's not definitive.
We're also volunteers.
Well, thank you. We don't get paid.
So volunteers that spend a lot of time considering these issues in advance of meetings and come with
Correct.
well thought out ideas and questions for our own knowledge and information, and certainly do not rubber stamp anything that is presented to us.
Thank you. Last question. These changes that are being suggested were approved when the PUD was approved,
The
the
overall
overall PUD.
14-18.
14-18. So what is changing, the things you outlined would be the road, the retention pond, the setbacks.
Not-
But if they were to change it, they could put homes there anyway, so we're not amending, well, are we amending the PUD? Only because of the setbacks, the
We're
retention
changing the road.
pond,
We're changing the roads,
which you need to because
Right.
they're townhomes.
right?
And you need the townhome parking to come in the back. Okay. Those are all my questions. Does anyone else have a question? For this recommendation? Anyone have any questions?
No, thank you. I believe you addressed all of my concerns.
John, just in the spirit of recent weather, just looking at the site, it looks to be a bit challenging hydraulically. Is that one retention pond? So there's some on the other side there.
We would know after this last week.
It mostly just concerned with the large tracts of single family homes there, being able to get the stormwater to those retention ponds. Any thoughts or any additional concerns regarding them?
So these changes, in part, now you're taking another stab at this again here, 12 years later. This was engineers who were laying this out saying, okay, with how things have changed in the past 12 years, this makes more sense to do some shifts here for stormwater to be able to handle all the different uses.
I guess that's what I was concerned about. We do have an opportunity to make it a bit better, I guess, in that regard. So, okay, good enough.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, got a motion by Commissioner Rubinski, second by Vice Chair Miller. Any further discussion amongst the commission?
To approve this recommendation.
Approve as recommended.
All right, we'll go ahead with the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, and then that will move forward to city council with the third. This, okay, from May 5th. All right, moving on then to item number 3, which is a public hearing. Public hearing on a request for a conditional use permit to allow a rooming house at 828 Cherry Street, submitted by David Nelson on behalf of Casson Savnor Properties LLC property owner.
Chair. Okay, so what we're looking at here is at the corner of Van Buren and Cherry Street. For the sake of the comprehensive plan, recommends mixed use for this parcel. And then while we're here, the zoning itself is office residential. Within the OR office residential zoning, a rooming house is a conditional use permit. So this is a closer look at the site from both the street view and the parcel from an overhead view of this property. The lot itself is about just under 13,000 square feet. It's a vacant 2-story office building on the site. So the applicant is proposing a rooming house inside the vacant building. For our code's sake, a rooming house is defined as follows. It's a building that provides a dwelling space to be occupied by 4 or more individuals who are unrelated and do not constitute a family or a family and 2 or more unrelated individuals. A fee is paid to the leaseholder or the owner for occupancy for usually longer than 1 night, and common facilities may be shared, including toilet and kitchen. If, in addition to a room, the leaseholder or owner, as part of a fee for services, provides meals, then the building is considered to be a boarding house. They're not, this is not a boarding house. So a rooming / boarding house may be considered as a dormitory as defined and regulated by this code. We'll get into that later. A rooming house is considered to be a CUP within the OR district. So originally, the applicant came to planning staff and proposed capacity of 25 to 31 people inside of this existing building. This has been reduced down to 20 people based off of capacity analysis done by staff using section 44-1581 sub C, which is in your staff report. This is reflected in the approval conditions. Staff believes that the capacity may further be reduced based on the parking requirement of 1 parking stall per bed. And that be determined by a full on-site plan review though. So capacity was discussed at length during a neighborhood meeting that was held last week for this project, or 2 weeks ago, sorry. Within the OR district, a 12-unit multifamily building could be built with no CUP required. So you could put in more density at this site. While we can't assume that this capacity, this fictional building, could safely, we could safely estimate that 24 people could fit into a 12-unit type of building. So because of this, and because of the detailed capacity restrictions that are outlined in section 44-1581, as well as the defined area for parking capacity based off of the overall size of this property, staff feels that a maximum of 20 people for this use is sufficient. The applicant plans on hosting sober-only tenants at this rooming house. There will be no provisions in place by the landlord concerning tenant requirements to remain housed at this location, but none of those provisions exceed the city's definition for a rooming house, as they do not offer recovery services, programming, or any other detox services on site. This property is intended to be a home for sober individuals, not a facility to become sober. So approval conditions have been added to reflect the approval of the rooming house use, that it applies, that if you went beyond that scope, a new CUP would be required. The reason why I bring this up is because in language, it matters as far as the uses that would be offered at the site. You go to a place, if somebody says, hey, there's no smoking at my apartment, that's a pretty typical and common lease holder provision. In this case, it's sober only, but if the tenants are going to go to say meetings or other programming, if you offsite, and thus rooming house is the appropriate classification. Because of the change of use from office to residential, we are also requiring buffering on the site, specifically to the existing parking lot. So if with this parking lot, it's designed in a legal non-conforming way. If this was a brand new build, there'd be requirements for buffering. So we're trying to add in that to this CUP request. The southern and western property lines are adjacent to residential uses. Staff feels to require a 5-foot landscape buffer, as well as a 6-foot tall, 100% opaque fence along those property lines. A 15-foot buffer for the parking lot would also be required between the sidewalk and parking area along the eastern property line. That is reflected in the conditions that we brought up later on. Those conditions based off of capacity for a building would meet typical parking standards for the site, parking lot design standards for buffering. Other possible conditions of approval were discussed at the neighborhood meeting, including requiring annual or semi-annual meetings with the neighborhood association, a limit on police calls that require the CUP to be revoked or reviewed by common council, or requirements for curfews. While these conditions have been placed on shelter facilities in the past, staff does not believe there's a reason to place these conditions on a rooming house. They're separate functions. A final site plan has to meet city site plan review, and additionally meet 2 land use development standards for different sections of the zoning code. Since this is residential in nature and not a recovery facility, staff has not added those conditions that were brought up by folks at the neighborhood meeting, but we wanted to let you know that people did bring these ideas up. So in section 44-83 of the municipal code, we have our normal 7 standards for a plan commission considered for a CUP. You've seen this before, so I'm not going to go through this quite as much, but you haven't necessarily seen the rooming house standards that come forth in 44-1584. Those are required to be the following: The operator shall submit a management plan for the facility, and a floor plan showing sleeping areas, emergency exits and bathrooms. So going back up here, there have been some ground floor plans and main floor plans that have been presented. Those plans still need to be vetted through a proper building code. So it's understood that's gonna take some investment to do that, so they're coming forward with the CUP request now to see if they have approvals to go forth and make those changes, but this is what they felt they could do on the property. It also reflects having a bit more sleeping area than what will be allowed based off of what planning staff is requesting at the max of 20 beds. This shows more like 25 if you combine both these together. All new construction or additions to the existing buildings shall be compatible with the scale and character of the surroundings. They're not seeking to do anything to be changes on the outside, it'd be just changes to the inside. An appropriate transition area between the use and adjacent property shall be required to include landscaping, screening, and other site improvements consistent with the character of the neighborhood. This in part goes to what the staff require or suggested requirements for landscaping along the parking area to have a buffer between the residential and this use. Additionally, a rooming house / boarding house may be considered dormitory as defined within this code, and that's where we get this number of being 20 comes into play. With that, I'll just rattle through some of the requirements. That code notes that on-site services shall be for residents only. The maximum number of persons occupying the building shall not exceed 4 per bedroom, with 50 square feet of sleeping area per resident. 1 bath and restroom facility for every 8 individuals residing in the dormitory. The bath and restroom facility shall be located so that no individual is passing through somebody else's bedroom to get to the bathroom. This is probably the biggest thing in play with this and why 20 got to a number here. 1 kitchen and dining area is required for every 10 individuals at the facility. So with 2 noted, that gives you 20. 1 laundry facility consisting of a minimum of 1 clothes washer, 1 clothes dryer, and a wash basin for every 10 individuals. And if the dorm happens to cease for a period of 12 or more months, then the CUP goes away. So staff believes that the standards have been met for this use with what's been put forth with their plans. As noted, this will sort of go through a typical building plan review to make sure it would meet IBC requirements. So a neighborhood meeting was held on April 15th. Approximately 23 members of the public attended. There are people in support, opposition, and others who are looking for information. There's a lot of discussion about having too many transient or rehab or shelter facilities in this neighborhood. So because of that, staff did an assessment about congregate living in the area. You've noticed that in your staff report. Congregate living has a lot of different types within the area. So within our code, there are 6 main types and then some subcategories within. There's rooming house, boarding house, community living arrangements, which is a CLA, shelters, transitional housing, and dormitories. So you have a staff memo, it defines each one of those different classifications. When discussing a concentration of transient housing uses, staff can't be sure what people necessarily mean by that. Any one of us can be transient by definition. As a property owner or a renter or an in-between, you can live the property for a month. What truly is transient? Staff is making the assumption that the uses defined as congregate living are generally what people are referring to though, for making a classification of transient. So to note, there's no concentration for restrictions of congregate living with the exception of CLAs. So we have concentration restrictions for different things in the city. Duplexes, while they're permitted by rights, they still can do in a typical R1 neighborhood, only a quarter of the block. You can't go and see beyond that. We had some changes to the code to allow for multifamily in commercial districts, but it still had to be 1,250 feet, 1,250 feet from the nearest arterial intersection and away from another multifamily along that street. So we have it in our code, we don't have it for congregate living. We wanted to note that to this group as more of a larger picture question because our code doesn't say, hey, you reached the limit, you can't go beyond this. But we acknowledge that people had said, hey, are we getting a bit too concentrated down this area? So staff looked at what does it mean for congregate living facilities within the city of Green Bay? And what does it mean down in this area to show just, okay, what is going on? Our analysis, we found there are 16 congregate living uses shown on the citywide map. Of those, 13 are located in downtown as defined by Alder District 7 and 9. We also mapped within a half mile of 828 Cherry Street, which holds 9 facilities within a half mile. Those being Jackie Nitschke, Sober Living for Women, Jackie Nitschke Sober Living Future Site, and Transformation House. 4 shelters being Wellspring, New Cap / Safe Haven, which is coming forth as a request here the next meeting. Jackie Nitschke Sober Living for Women and Golden House, and then 1 general congregate living being Serenity House, and 1 dorm being the Center for Use. So with all that in mind, staff doesn't offer an opinion on this data, but we want to provide context. People are saying this, here's what we have as far as projected information. And it's important to note that not all congregate living facilities are shelters. They're not. Congregate living provides a needed middle ground for many in the community who are not able, we're not ready, able, or willing to live in a more traditional rental or ownership situation at the time. So as noted, Alder Profit and property owners within 200 feet were notified. This led to the neighborhood meeting as well back on the 15th. And as a drafting of the email, there was 1 additional comment that was received outside of the neighborhood meeting itself, which is attached in your packet.
All right, so now with this public hearing, we're looking to hear from anyone who would like to speak on this item.
Yes, my name is Kevin Plotty and my wife Mary Cruz. We live at 117 North Van Buren Street. You look at the aerial map. They are in our backyard. So if things go through, about the only thing I'm concerned about is a nice buffer between our properties. Basically, they are in our backyard. And 20 people on that corner. We would just like to have a buffer. Nice fence or whatever to divide the properties. So if they're doing outside activities or we're doing outside activities, we're not staring at each other, because literally you walk out our kitchen door and we step onto their parking lot. So that's basically the only thing I'm concerned about as a neighbor is we're so used to the peace and quiet. If we can just make sure that it stays peace and quiet. That's all. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
Put you on screen.
No.
Just go.
Gang, how are we? Garrett Bader, 300 North Van Buren Street. Wearing 3 hats tonight. Resident, developer, neighborhood association president. As many know, I've put a significant amount of investment into this neighborhood over the past now nearly 15 years. And part of that is not only for what it's done through investors I brought to the table or specific projects, but it's also bringing along other end buyers and users and folks into the neighborhood. And a big part of that is trying to change the narrative of what this neighborhood has been. For too long, we know the nicknames. We don't need to repeat them here. It was not good. And I think we've made major progress on how people now see this area that we call our Whitney Park Neighborhood Association, our 8 square blocks. I had the opportunity to meet the applicant. I think we had a very cordial meeting and a phone call before that. I have nothing personally. I don't think anyone that would tell you who spoke at any of these opportunities would say anything negative about the applicant or even the use. I always want to make sure that we are separating the use from the proposal. I think for anyone who has a Christian sense or a care for other people about them would say the initiative is noble, and it probably is a very good thing. But it does bear repeating what John mentioned earlier, is that in our 8 square box, we already have multiple social service agency operations. That, of course, is not a bad thing automatically. It does not mean that it suggests that the neighborhood is bad. It can, however, make it more challenging when looking at how do we properly develop or redevelop an area like has been occurring here. And with other projects that are underway, of course, none of which are directly mine. When you stand along Webster Avenue and you then proceed towards downtown, you would hit the Gathering Place at Cherry, the new cap facility kitty corner from that. The next block would be this one. A block over and a block over, both west and south, would be the St. John's Women's Shelter. A block back west and also north would be the Jackie Nitschke facilities. We have new community clinic. Folks, we have done our fair share. And again, that's not to say that the operation shouldn't occur, but it's being proposed here because the building is available. It doesn't necessarily mean that the use fits. What I would really hope this committee would do is say, the use may be great and the need may be there. This simply may not be the right place for it. I'm asking that to be significantly considered as you look at this. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Justin Scott. I'm the owner of 909 East Walnut Street, which is within the 200 feet, it's the corner of Van Buren and East Walnut. I am personally opposed to the idea, in part because I have my property, which the entire area has been trying to improve, as we know, building off the previous conversation. I myself have done considerable work to the property. It's a 107 or 50-year-old building. It's like, takes considerable work. I think we're on the right path, and I just think the narrative of the neighborhood is not conducive to this project. For a multitude of reasons that I've emailed, and I just don't care to go through at this point, but limited to the concentration of facilities and whatnot. That really is all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Let the record reflect that no one else came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 4. Consideration with possible action on a conditional use permit to allow a rooming house at 828 Cherry Street, submitted by David Nelson on behalf of Casadnor Properties LLC property owner.
Thank you, Chair. So staff does recommend approval of the request. Part of the recommendations will address the neighbor at 117 had asked for. Staff recommends based off the following conditions. That sleeping capacity shall be limited to 20 per people / beds. Any increase in beds or capacity should require an amendment to the CUP. The CUP permit is for rooming houses only. Any programming changes may require an amendment to the CUP if the programming falls outside of the code's definition of rooming house. On-site parking requirements shall be 1 space provided for every bed. So we don't have full on-site plans. Steph and I were looking at an analysis of this. We think you can maybe do 18 stalls if you're really forcing this pretty well, but it may be less than that, but I think the max we can probably do is 18. A buffering shall comply with provisions of section 44-1966 and is required as follows. A 6-foot, 100% opaque fence is required along the southern and western property line, starting 15 feet back from the front property line. So let's go back to here. So starting here, fence along this line to the front of the house or to the structure itself. Right, the structure. So you still wouldn't go into the front yard setback with the fence because we're not, yes, but lines with the house, yes. Yeah.
Or the building?
The building itself, the residential structure. A 5-foot landscape buffer on the southern and western property lines. So you'd be removing some of the asphalt that's there, but it's relatively wide and still have parking on both sides.
So it'll have a fence and a berm.
Well, a fence and a landscape area.
Landscape.
They could berm it. We're not putting the restrictions on to what it has to be. Yeah, you could do berm. Sure. Then a 15-foot buffer is required along the eastern property line. That goes into general parking lot standards for parking lots that are adjacent to public right of ways. And then compliance with all the regulations of the Green Bay Municipal Code. The fifth condition staff recommends.
All right, and then the 20 people, that's because you have to have one laundry and one kitchen for every 10 people.
Mhm.
So they're gonna have 2 laundries, 2 kitchens. So I'm just curious, so what is, I'm trying to understand what, I understand that there's that need of in-between housing, but what, I guess, what specifically is their goal, like what need are they meeting?
Right.
Who are they, I guess, who are they looking to, I mean, they probably have in mind who their clients are, I mean, I guess I don't even know if that's our purview or not, but.
Yeah, it was noted as it being a house that would be a sober house. The folks who are in there are sobriety.
Okay.
Where we are trying to make certain that the program for a zoning perspective is a key. If the program inside it goes beyond typical room and board
Living.
and those programming elements were actually inside of the facility. The code notes, let me be verbatim here. It's not trying to, the code isn't trying to impede people living in a place. The code does have restrictions for bringing services and having more impact inside of a facility. That's where the code says, hey, you're in a neighborhood, don't bring 4 employees in their cars in a different shift coming
Right.
in and out of a building. And so if you are exiting the building to go see sobriety treatment somewhere else. So I can go into the doctor or the dentist or whatever other used to be out there. So because there isn't this additional service, it's rooming house and the market shows there's a need for it still in the area.
I'm just trying to understand, like, are their clients coming straight from like Jackie Nitschke Center or like Libertas or things of that nature? My asking questions that are.
Yeah, so, yeah,
I feel like I'm just trying to understand.
right. From a zoning perspective, it's the code doesn't like take a look and do it as far as where they come from.
Alright. I was just curious because it was like sober living, but it's past programming, it's, you know.
It's been clear by the intent of the applicant that this was a sober living facility, that if you're there because you're trying to get sober and there wouldn't be alcohol on the site. From a code perspective, to make certain this does not change into a community living arrangement, it's those additional services being provided at the site that cannot happen.
Okay, so full disclosure, I live in this neighborhood. I did receive a notification because I'm within 200 feet. Also, I did ask staff if I was able to speak on it, and I do not have any kind of financial, what's the right word?
Conflict of interest.
I do not have in a financial conflict of interest. I do have some questions for you. Okay. So for me, this is not really a not in my backyard type of comment or question. I do have some concerns. Again, I don't know if you can answer those, if I can, whatever. Before I start my questions, you know, I've lived in Green Bay 16 years off and on, probably about 7. I didn't know what the neighborhood used to be called, but I know there is many developments that have been created and more to come. Will there be like a manager or someone on site to oversee the residents? That's my first question. Or is that not required?
So from a perspective of what the code is, there's nothing that's required about that per se. It's a rooming house or wouldn't. I'm looking at this through a lens of, it's congregate living, this is not a shelter, it's a rooming house. So if there is or is not, it's not the purview of the code to take it on.
We've just never seen anything like this before.
Am I able to speak, please?
And the floor is closed at this time.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, well, I guess you have one question about whether we have approved anything of this nature before.
Oh, as far as rooming houses for congregate living?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna go back to,
The west side off of Broadway, there was one last.
Is that one out for Dance and Henry that we approved, but it never. happened?
those are different. I wanna know if these are, so, okay.
Oh, okay.
Congregate living, this would go to Serenity House.
Hmm.
CLA, you approved one over on Henry and it never happened.
Right, it
Oh, okay.
was the fire station.
Yes, that was a CLA that you approved. Dormitory, Center for Youth. That's relatively recent. And obviously Jack Nitchie was pretty recent as well. And in that case, that was boarding house for that because going back to the activities, the functionality, it's a place to live. Now, mind you, they're walking 50 feet to Jack Nitchie, which has a programming that close, but inside of that building is a residential facility. And obviously, so is the CLA, they're also residential facilities, but the programming element doesn't come to play.
Question, is it within our purview to ask if this is a nonprofit or for-profit, or does that not matter?
I would say not
From
relevant.
from the zoning perspective, it
Okay.
doesn't matter.
All right, there were many questions addressed at the neighborhood meeting. I know our auditor is here, so I don't know if she wants to at some point address that. I have had a lot of neighbors reaching out to me personally about what should they do, how do they voice their concerns at a recent neighborhood meeting. Everyone that was there was opposed to this CUP. I guess my last question goes back to the comment that was made before, and you referenced 16. I don't know what you referenced. It was like 16 of these facilities within
Oh.
that
We're
area,
kidding.
and 13 of them were downtown.
Yeah.
That's just-
It's walkability.
As far as congregate living goes in the citywide search, 13 are downtown area in District 7 and 9. The other 3 are located outside of districts, older District 7 and
Yeah,
9.
but someone goes over both sides of the river too.
Right, yeah, so 7 and 9, if you're looking at this, it's gonna
Me
be,
too.
That's also the same, there's more elevators downtown than there is. Like, yeah, there's further density, I would expect them.
Okay, I don't know what to call these, but I think they were referenced before. Jackie Nisty, but I think it's 2 or 3, the Gathering Place. There is a youth development home. I don't know what it's called at the end of Cherry Street.
Jazz House.
Jazz House, okay. And many more. Again, I want to echo the sentiments, full disclosure. I live in this neighborhood. This is not in my backyard neighborhood for me personally. But there is a lot of COU, what do you call them?
so CLAs are congregate living.
But thank you.
And it's a different classification.
I know.
Yep, sorry, it just,
Yeah,
congregate living is the Venn diagrams.
yeah,
CLA is just one of those that gets in the bucket, along with congregate living and dormitory, rooming house, boarding house.
yeah. I would just again echo the sentiments that were said before in the public hearing. That's a lot. And as I walk through the neighborhood, I see those to this point. I don't know what the activity as a resident is in that neighborhood. I don't think that goes into the purview of what we're supposed to be discussing here. I don't think it's a need in this neighborhood, and for that, I'm going to vote against this. Because I live in a neighborhood, and like was stated earlier, we do have at least 5 to 7 of those within the neighborhood already fully operating.
Is there any data that shows an increase of crime or public disturbance with the existing facilities that exist downtown? Is there any studies that would give an indication plus or minus?
This is anecdotal. I don't know necessarily if I can give you something that's specific. I'll give you one specific case. The existing new cap facility, that's a shelter, located on South Jefferson. Because that's gonna be an upcoming item, so we can do some research on that. There was one complaint over the past 4 years at that site. Which I'd say is pretty common, frankly, of any parcel in the city, that complaint would come through. Well, that's just one. I don't have anything that could say. That would point to anything else, but this. Proposed use, as with any proposed use and existing use, would be subject to the nuisance code and. The actions I would come forward with, that if that became necessary.
So nuisance code violations are recorded, correct? Or you could check to see what, what the history is in that neighborhood and in the surrounding neighborhood. I just want to make sure we're delving in fact and not perceptions when we're making a decision on something like this. I hate for this facility to be not forwarded because we're perceiving it to be a negative impact. And if it is, okay. And if it isn't, then I think we're missing a chance. I have no clue. I'm hearing people concerned about it, but no one said, I know for a fact, right here at this address, there have been 5 times the cops have come in the last 3 months. I haven't heard that. I've heard, we've got these facilities here. This is one more. And it's like, well, okay, is that good or bad? Okay, I like to base things on fact, not perception. So I don't know. I guess if this is approved to go to common council, I would appreciate an evaluation of existing data. If that's the case, okay. To be presented to the common council.
So this is OR, right, currently? What's the most intense use that could be on that parcel currently?
Apartment.
I would suggest that probably the most intense, yes.
I guess.
All their families.
Business that would have a lot of foot traffic.
More than 20 people?
Yes. Probably not.
Yeah, 12 units is what you could, mind you, it would take a lot of working around to make that happen. Because of
Right,
parking
right.
and the requirements for that, but
Right.
yes, 12 units is what you could do in this parcel.
So 12 units,
Yeah,
that's more than 12 people.
most likely, yes.
Right. So intensity wise, it would be, OR could be, on that lot, could be more intense than having 20 people.
That's what it would be, yes.
I
And
think
some of
that's,
those buildings that are just kind of in the middle of neighborhoods, like. How do you repurpose them?
the fact that they're
You
trying
can
to do art.
talk all
Oh,
about it.
okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just because my name was invoked earlier. So I was at the neighborhood input meeting for the use, but I did have a conflict for the neighborhood association meeting, so I did one and not the other. But I was taking notes the full time I was there, as was a few members of staff. So I do think it's important to delineate that there's not active services being provided at this home. I also think it's important to note my house is covered by a green dot. I live directly next to one that didn't have to go through plan commission or council approval. And I hate to be so blunt about it, but those individuals are basically like scared straight into being the best neighbors on earth. I mean, I talked about, 27-inch snowstorm we had. They were out there numerous times doing our sidewalk. They went into driveways. Our plow died during that snowstorm. I mean, there is a gap in our community for individuals who are at a certain point in their recovery who just can't afford, or landlords won't accept them with their past. So we do have that gap. The home directly next to me was so successful, they bought another house down the block. So that's what the other blue dot just outside that, I'm looking at a slightly different map, but there's another one, another block down that they did the same thing with that home, turned a duplex into a 12-bed. They walk down the street back and forth, but so do all of my other neighbors living in a downtown area. They walk from house to house. It's not been an issue for me as a neighbor directly next to them. But I just think that is an important delineation, that there's not active services being provided, but it is a gap in our community for these individuals to get a hand up, not a handout, and that's what they'd be receiving here.
Yeah, I mean, this is, they're marketing a sober living dorm. Or that's what their aim is.
It just says to note, they're rooming house. We
Sorry,
just,
my bad.
sorry, just the way it's.
Let me write down rooming
Classified as
house.
dormitory.
I keep on saying it over and over again, rooming house. My bad. Yeah. I don't agree with it.
Oh, and neighbors have been reaching out to me, keep reaching out to me. I'm taking all the information.
I don't know, I live downtown, I don't live very far from the NEW shelter, corner of Mather and Broadway, is that? And, I guess I don't. I mean, to have something like this on the outskirts of town doesn't make sense, I mean, people don't necessarily have vehicles, I mean, that's why you see. Why these facilities are downtown, because people need to be able to get around, and a lot of people, I mean, they don't have cars or vehicles or.
I can absolutely understand why community members living in neighborhoods could feel like this is a lot, especially when. Like you said, a lot of these people don't have cars necessarily and they're walking around and just very visible. You're gonna see a lot of more people out and about. Ultimately, I feel like if this is meeting our 7 considerations when we look at this, you know, who's living in this rooming houses outside of our purview, considering that there are not services being rendered there. So I don't want to minimize the concerns of the neighbors at all, because I can understand that too as a downtown resident. It can feel like sometimes how much is too much in a neighborhood, how many more services are gonna come into my neighborhood, and it becomes less of a neighborhood and more of a block of social services. I can understand that feeling very, very concerning, especially for property owners. But ultimately, the part where they're telling us that this is a sober living facility is, in my mind, slightly irrelevant. Rooming house is slightly irrelevant because they're not providing facilities, and therefore it could be just a rooming house of dudes or just a rooming house of women. And we would not necessarily be having so much consternation about it.
I tend to agree with all those thoughts and will make the motion to approve as recommended. Main reason being pretty much everything that was just said before. We're judging people before we even had a chance for them to sign a rent for this. That feels wrong personally. This neighborhood has changed quite a bit. It's gentrified, if we're being completely honest about it. And I think some of the motives behind people coming out against this should be considered a little bit here as well. This is a higher standard than we found in many of the other situations. I see no reason from a zoning perspective that this should not be put forward. If there's other reasons that people have that falls in the political realm, please take it to council. This is a solid proposal based on what we have seen. So move to approve.
I second.
Any further discussion? Then that will go ahead with the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
6-4, 1 nay, and I will go forward to city council for May 5th. Moving on to item number 5, which is a public hearing to amend a planned unit development for the JBS development site submitted by Community and Economic Development Department on behalf of the Redevelopment Authority of the City of Green Bay and Grand Boulevard Apartments LLC property owners.
Thank you, Chair. JBS, subject site, the land is zoned, right now general industrial. And is to be added to the PUD itself here. So this land, why it was zoned that way is because it was part of the Village of Bellevue. And so, in our future land use, this is a part of the overall development for JBS. The zoning, so I call it a park now, with the PUD for the JBS site. The change now is actually, what has happened is over here in block F, that parcel that existed, a land swap occurred with the Village of Bellevue to where this is now part of JBS. And the parking lot over at Walmart is now part of Walmart, because the building was already in Bellevue, but the parking lot is not. So the PUD is now reflected in cleanup. Just note that it's no longer in the Village of Bellevue. It's now becomes developed in area F to where it is a part of the City of Green Bay.
All right, now with this public hearing, we're looking to hear from anyone who'd like to speak on this item. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding action item, item number 6. Consideration with possible action to amend a planned unit development for the JBS development site submitted by Community and Economic Development Department on behalf of the Redevelopment Authority of the City of Green Bay and Grand Boulevard Apartments LLC property owners.
Staff recommends approval of the request to change the PD to modify the village language. Motion to approve.
And motion by Commissioner Vinsky, second by Commissioner Fullwilder. Any discussion?
I do have to complain, John. It was one of my favorite fun facts to tell people that half of the Walmart was in Green Bay, the other was in the, can't do that anymore. So, it's unfortunate for me, but yes, thank you for the clarity.
All right, we will, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and that will move forward to City Council for May 5th. Moving on to item 7, which is the beginning of the fun. So I just read through all of them all at once.
For this one right here, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, for just the
For
3.
just
All
this
right,
right now,
all right,
yeah.
all right. Public hearing on a conditional use permit request to build a single family home within the S-RLI zoned district at 1108 South Broadway. Submitted by Allison Buckley of Redu Homes, applicant, Redevelopment Authority of the City of Green Bay property owner. Public hearing on a conditional use permit request to build a single family home within the S-RLI zone district at 1112 South Broadway. Submitted by Allison Buckley of Redu Homes, applicant, Redevelopment Authority of the City of Green Bay property owner. And public hearing on a conditional use permit request to build a single family home within the S-RLI zone district at 1116 South Broadway, submitted by Allison Buckley of Redu Homes, applicant, Redevelopment Authority of the City of Green Bay property owner.
Thank you. So with this, we have 3 individual parcels. So it's 3 individual CUPs are being asked. But for all intents and purposes, they're asking for the same thing. So with this public hearing, I'm going to address all 3 parcels. At the public hearing, when the public can speak, can ask for folks to speak about 1108, then 1112, and then 1116. If somebody were to come up and say something about an individual lot, might be something you want to address them about that lot. Otherwise, I'll let you know that when it comes to the recommendation, it's the same for all 3 parcels. We'll go through the same thing again then in the next item. So, why we're here, down in the SRLI, Special Districts, Residential, Light Industrial, single family homes that are new require conditional use permits. Here are the parcels themselves, on these properties. They're on lots that are approximately 120 by 50 feet wide, 120 in depth. And Redo is looking to develop single-family homes on each of these lots. In this district, we have a mix of industrial uses, commercial uses, existing single-family uses, existing 2 and 3 family uses. And when this district went into play, with code back around 2010 or so, it was recognizing like there's a hodgepodge down here. And that because it's being arterial on Broadway, there are places where it does make sense to have commercial and industrial uses. When staff reviewed this, noting the size of these parcels being 50 by 120 approximately, and being mid-block, and also being surrounded by single-family homes to the north and south, staff felt in this case it was appropriate for single-family development to occur on these parcels. If this happened to be at a corner lot or on bigger lots, yes, see that the idea of a commercial or industrial use could have a lot more merit on those sites. Additionally, within the code right now, it's not as multifamily is not a permitted use. So it's not as though you can take these lots and combine it and become a multifamily. Single families are conditional, but not new multifamily. This is future land use to where that's mixed use for this area, and the zoning is SRLI. Redo has come forth with 3 different options for one family homes, 2 stories of. Going through the variety of them here. They're all the same footprints. And they're all pretty darn similar as far as the detached 2-cell garage in the back, with the garages that stay here. What's being shown here for a layout meets code for a single family home in this area. One of the concerns that we do have, since this would be 3 homes right next to each other, is wanting to ensure that they don't have the exact same look. Redo is noted option A, B, and C, but we actually want to see that actually happen in practice on these lots, to where even though they might be the same footprint, they clearly be different homes, people who are living there and would be accessing the neighbor or otherwise. So with that in mind, we want to move on to a public hearing.
Did I have to say it 9 times? Or just 3 times?
I think you gotta say it for each.
Okay, my right.
Gotcha.
3 times for.
That's how I understand.
Okay, all right, so for the first part of item 7, is there anyone wishing to speak on this item?
Once you say this.
Yeah, we should say.
All right, sorry, that's
Yeah.
1108 South Broadway. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and that part is closed. Moving on to 1112 South Broadway, is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and that part is now closed. Moving on to 1116 South Broadway, is there anyone looking to speak on this item? Is there anyone looking to speak on this item? Is there anyone looking to speak on this item? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding action item number 8. Consideration with possible action on a conditional use permit request to build a single-family home within the S-RLI zone district at 1108 South Broadway, submitted by Allison Buckley of Redu Homes, applicant, Redevelopment Authority of the City of Green Bay, property owner.
Sure. So when we look at SRLI and people wanting to put in single-family homes or land use development standards, staff feels that in the case of all 3 of these, they have been met. Some of those issues would be, this is adversely affect commercial and industrial uses within the area, as noted because of the size of the lot. In the mid-block, we don't feel that it does. Does the residential use, will it be subject to excessive noise, smoke, dust, noxious odor in this area? Given the location on the block and the other existing homes, staff doesn't believe it does. Does this impair future use or development of commercial or manufacturing zoned lots? Given the mid-block and the size of the lots, we don't believe that it does. Does a new use fit in with the rest of the neighborhood? On this block, there's a mix of 1 and 2 family homes, detached garages. Houses that are to the setback about 10 feet or so from the front right away. The overall footprint is 732 square feet, which is very similar to something to the other homes in the area. And that does the home itself, meet a minimum requirement of being at least 22 feet in width. It does. So Alder Baker, the Shipyard Neighborhood Association, and adjacent property owners within 200 feet were notified. We did receive 2 inquiries, but both were just more inquisitive and in general supported the idea of single family homes in the neighborhood. One neighbor had a complaint about, or had a concern about a lot of construction happening in the area that could be, obviously, because of 3 homes happening at once. With all that in mind, staff recommends approval of this request with 3 following conditions. As noted from these site plans, there's no sidewalk shown from the front porch area back down to the sidewalk. So staff would like to see the usual sidewalks from the front door to South Broadway to be included. Design aspects such as material color and roof pitch design must vary from an adjacent home located between 1108, 1112, and 1116. Each one of these will have its own individual, we'll note, like if you're 1108, vary from 1112 and 1116. If you're 1112, vary from 1108 and 1116.
Right.
And they're indicating they're going to do that. This is just noting that yes, that'd be the case. There'd be a change. As shown from these options A, B, and C, there are differences in both materials, orientation materials, windows, and roof pitches that are shown between the buildings. And then finally, typical compliance with all the regulations within the Green Bay Code.
Okay. So we're working on 1108 South Broadway first.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Vinsky, second by Vice Chair Miller. Any further discussion? Hearing none, go ahead with the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that will move forward then to City Council for May 5th. Moving on then to item 1112 South Broadway.
Motion to approve.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Vinsky, second by Vice Chair Miller. All those in favor?
Aye.
Moving on then to City Council for May 5th, and then moving on to 1116 South Broadway.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Vinsky, second by Vice Chair Miller. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Then I'll move forward then for City Council for May 5th. Moving on to item number 9, which is a public hearing.
Just note, other than this one, there are 6 of them. They're all the same property owner, they're all the same applicants.
Okay. Should I just list
Wanna
those
say-
addresses?
2612, which is 1216 South Broadway, 2613, which is 1319 South Broadway. Rather than saying
Okay.
consideration with, public
Got
hearing
it.
for.
So I'll just add, okay,
Yeah.
got it. All right. I think I might get this. All right.
Yeah.
Public hearing on a conditional use permit request to build a single family home within the S-RLI zone district at 1216 South Broadway, 1319 South Broadway, 1321 South Broadway, 1305 South Chestnut Avenue, 1223 South Chestnut Avenue, 1322 South and 1322 South Chestnut Avenue, submitted by Matt Saz of Green Bay Habitat for Humanity, applicant and property owner.
Thank you, Chair. So as noted, these are the 6 sites. And we look at this on the map, they're all in the same general area along Broadway and Chestnut. Going back to our previous item, things that are in common with this, the lot sizes, these do vary a little bit. They're around 7,000 or so square feet, but generally speaking, 50 feet wide, being around 120 feet in depth. So maybe a bit more than that in some areas. They're narrow lots. They're located in the mid-block for all of these sites. And then what's different with this is you're on Chestnut, which Chestnut does have some non-residential uses, but compared to Broadway has lots for the sites. Future land use. This has a bit of difference as far as changes. When it comes to the Broadway area, it's mixed use into the Back to the west, it's mixed residential along Chestnut. But in all cases, this is in the SRI zone district. Back behind here along State Street, we're getting to some industrial zoning, back in that area. So I will go through each one of these individually. I will note some of these sites have started construction already, if you happen to have driven by it. There were some sites that were approved, and there was a mistake made by some folks to allow it to happen. So if you happen to driven by this and went, there's already a house right there. Some did have that. They meet the code in general. It was just not known when this was approved that, yeah, this is not an R1, this is definitional use permit. But you're seeing both a site plan and an elevation for each one of these houses. When looking at each individual site, they all meet the code when it comes to a typical setback, impervious surface. What does it mean in these blocks as far as being a single family or a two family? Sorry, a single story or a two story. And as noted from the previous item, meeting the requirements for a single family home within an SRI district. The two homes that happen to be next to one another, so we want to see some changes, do have differences. This one here is 1319. This one is 1321. One is a two-story home. One is a single-story home. So they do vary. In the cases where there happens to be access from an alley, those sites are utilizing alley access for their drive entrances to a detached garage. All homes have a detached garage, and as noted, they meet the typical site building requirements for the area.
All right. So now with this public hearing, we're looking to hear from anyone who'd like to speak on 1216 South Broadway. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward, and 1216 South Broadway is now closed. Moving on to 1319 South Broadway. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward, and that portion of the public hearing is now closed. Moving on to 1321 South Broadway. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward, and this portion of the public hearing is now closed. Moving on to 1305 South Chestnut Avenue. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward, and this portion of the public hearing is now closed. Moving on to 1223 South Chestnut Avenue. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward, and the public hearing on this item is now closed. Moving on to 1322 South Chestnut Avenue. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Let the record reflect that no one came forward, and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable items. Item number 10. Consideration with possible action on a conditional use permit request to build a single-family home within the S-RLI zoned district at 126. I went back too far. Sorry. Wait, no, that is right.
That's right.
Sorry, zone district at 1216 South Broadway, 1319 South Broadway, 1321 South Broadway, 1305 South Chestnut Avenue, and 1223 South Chestnut Avenue, submitted by Matt Saz. Did I miss something? 13, oh, wait, where? Oh my gosh, okay, so 1223 South Chestnut and 1322 South Chestnut Avenue, submitted by Matt Saz of Green Bay Habitat for Humanity, applicant and property owner.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay.
So given that there's only two sites that have to be next to one another, and those two sites vary as far as their design of their buildings, And given that the buildings in general, they match what's, the surroundings, neighborhood. Staff does not have any individual, requests beyond the typical compliance with all regulations of the Green Bay Code, for each one of these individual, CUP requests.
All right,
Can I make a motion to approve all 6 addresses?
we can do that. No, we,
Motion to approve all 6 requests. As recommended. Second.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Vinsky, second by Vice Chair Miller to approve all 6 requests. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then that will be before the city council for May 5th. Moving on to informational director's report.
Hello. All right, so keep it quick. Common Council met last week. Approved or advanced all items from the previous planning commission. The county's proposed PUD on the former Bank Mutual site that was pulled and amended. The council added some additional specifying language that particular users of the parking lots in the south of Ryan, those, instead of being a little bit more vague with the language as to who that lot is for, we called out specifically it's for the ADRC, for the library, for the Grand Cafe, for the job site. That was really the only major change. Otherwise, everything else moved forward. Looking at our development tracker spreadsheet, the one I'll talk about a little bit today, I don't know if Cheryl mentioned it last time, but Redevelopment Authority did approve a development agreement recently for 200 North Monroe, this is the former Associated Bank lot. That was approved at RDA. After RDA, the developer came back and had some additional changes that they were hoping to see in the agreement, so we actually held it. So nothing concerning, we just needed a little bit more time to tweak language, so we intend to bring that back next time. But we expect that to move forward, multi-phased, mixed use project, multifamily market rate residential. Working with 360.
Did they do something else in the region?
Did you say something? Not in the city of Green Bay. They are previous owners and developers of the Watermark building. They owned it, managed it.
Way back.
Yeah, way back. So before it's once Foxconn, they were the owners. Otherwise, this would be, I think, the first residential project in the city. They're out of La Crosse. They've done really good work out west. We'd like to see them do good work here in Green Bay. Any projects you have questions about, you'd like to discuss?
What's going on with the merge development? That should be already.
Yeah, so we, at the redevelopment authority, we considered, and it was approved there, an amendment to the development agreement. To change timelines, to get them back into compliance. That was held at council, and actually, I take it back, it was denied. So we are currently out of compliance with the development agreements, and I've been putting that in this point.
Thanks.
Yeah, but it's an unfortunate situation for sure, which we're working on and hope to solve. Luck.
All right, date of the next meeting, Monday, May 11th, 2026.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Vinsky, second by Commissioner Fullwilder. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Turn that recording on, right?
Yeah.